What's up, guys? It's Gary with Fresh from the Farm Fungi. I'm here in Denver, Colorado, and I wanted to go over some new liquid culture techniques. We got this cool little device from Lion's Mane in downtown Denver. Shout out to Lion's Mane. Check out that store if you're in the area. This is a really nifty tool that is gonna come in handy for making our liquid cultures. So Matt, the owner, created this. He's calling it the media extractor. I'm really excited about it. Basically, it's a aseptic way to remove your liquid culture. So if you attach it to a lure lock pipette like this glass one we have here, then you can consistently pull out liquid cultures without, tipping the jar over or fishing with the lid, which takes a lot of time. So I'm really excited. I'm going to be testing it out in these 2-liter media bottles, and I've got some Morchella or Morel mycelium that I've been expanding for a couple years, and my hopes is to continue to inoculate this around my yard. I'm going to be growing it in these giant media bottles and then extracting parts of mycelium and diluting them into buckets so I can inoculate it in my yard. So these tops can also go on these 2-liter bottles. And I'm also going to be expanding some Cordyceps militaris culture that I have here. So it's another really good technique if you have to inoculate a lot of jars with liquid culture. So I'm going to be doing a little Cordyceps experiment here and utilizing this media extraction device. I'm really excited to test this out. And for those of you who've been following me, you know that I love Bjorn's honey. This is what I use in all my liquid cultures, just honey and Colorado Rocky Mountain water. This is local honey from Boulder, Colorado. Shout out to Bjorn's. It's the best honey in the world, and there's just something really cool about using honey and mycelium and bees and mushrooms. I think that it really all goes together, and it might be the key to, future agriculture. So I'll go ahead and mix up that liquid culture and get these sterilized, and then I'll go through how to operate this media extractor. Alright guys, so I'm going to make my 4% liquid culture solution using Bjorn's honey. It's just raw honey from Boulder, Colorado. Like I said before, I prefer using honey. I've used, tryptocase soy with and without antibiotics before, buffered peptone, and I think that honey is, the cheapest thing, and it's what nature provides. So we're going to add 40 grams per liter. There you go, 40.8, that's pretty good. And then I like to just add warm water. And then mix it really thoroughly with a whisk. It's as easy as that. Alright guys, so you can see I've got 2 liters of liquid culture ready, and I'm going to add these stir bars to the media bottles. So these are important so that you can mix your liquid culture without stirring or without shaking. They're not completely necessary, especially with these bottles that have this media ring right here. So it's not necessary, it's just a convenience. And then I'm going to go ahead and exchange the lids here, since I'm not going to be using this smaller bottle, just to show you guys how easy it is to switch that over to a 2-liter media bottle. So I'm just using this same lid here, and alright, so I've got my 2-liter media bottles loaded up in the Presto pressure cooker for sterilization. I'm going to sterilize these for 20 minutes and make sure that these are backed off a little bit so that it doesn't build pressure. You could probably get up to 1,600 mils in one of these bottles, but I don't need that much, so I'm just going to use a liter. Guys, so we've got our liquid cultures sterilized and they're just cooling off right now. You want to make sure that those get down to room temp before you add any kind of mycelium, and right now they're at 174 or 175. So that's a little too warm. I'm probably going to wait till tomorrow and inoculate these liquid cultures. What's up guys? So I let these bottles cool overnight. It's reading about 80 degrees right now, which is a little on the warmer side, but it should be fine. The best practice for when you're making your liquid cultures is you would want to leave these at room temperature for about 4 or 5 days, and they should remain clear. You can see right now that there's no sediment in here. It's pretty transparent, which is another reason why I like using honey. Some of the other broths out there have chunks, or people like to add, sawdust, which kind of hides any potential contamination. So the better the honey, the clearer the solution, and it will remain like this for months and months as long as it's sterile. But since these morels are going to be going outside anyway, I'm just going to dump these into here and then show you guys how I incubate my liquid cultures. So I'll just go ahead and take this cap, set it over here. You can see the mycelium right there. So that is Morchella or morel species. I'm gonna wait, a few days to QC this liquid culture. Alright, so there's the mycelium in solution right there. And then I'm gonna incubate this for about 3 or 4 days by placing it on the stir plate here. I'll come back in a couple days and show you inoculating our cordyceps, which I like to use slants because cordyceps degrade very quickly. In about 2 or 3 generations, they'll start to get mutated. So it's really important to keep your cordyceps on slants. And I'll go for my slant directly into my liquid culture, and then I'll use this media extractor to inoculate a similar, number of jars like this very quickly. Alright guys, so it's been about 90 hours or so, and I'll zoom in on this liquid culture. You can see how clear it is right now. If there's any kind of bacteria or yeast, it would be very cloudy. You can see that the liquid is still transparent. So I'm going to go ahead and add the cordyceps slant culture to my liquid culture. And you can see behind there the morchella that's been mixing for a couple days. It's starting to get quite thick, so I'm pretty excited for that. Alright, so I've got my cordyceps culture slant right here. You can see how healthy that mycelium is. One important factor when you're observing cordyceps mycelium is that you want to make sure that it's still kind of white. One of the signs that it's degrading or it's about to pin is that mycelium will start to turn orange or yellow, which when you grow the cordyceps, any exposure to light for 24 to 72 hours is going to cause that mycelium to turn yellow. So that's a normal feature of the cordyceps, but I always make sure that mine's still white and healthy. So I'm going to open this slant up. I'm just going to check out one more time, make sure there's not any contamination, and you can see how nice and clear that mycelium is. Super healthy. I'm going to be cutting a piece near the top so that I don't have to go deep into the slant and possibly contaminate any of this. So I'm going to be selecting my culture from up near the top. Alright, so just going to take a piece out right here. And then open the top of my media extractor. You could just be using the normal lid right now too. Just going to pop it in there. And then I'll switch this out with my morel mycelium. You can see how nice and healthy that's looking. There you have it. So that's going to start mixing around and growing cordyceps mycelium. So once that grows out in a couple days, I'll do my quality control on it, and then I'll show you how to use this media extractor with this nice pipette here. What's up guys? So it's been about 2 days now, and that cordyceps culture has got some growth. So I'm going to go ahead and QC that. I'll QC that today, and then since this morchella is definitely starting to thicken up, I'm going to make some sawdust spawn that I'm going to be putting some of this morchella, and I'll show you guys, the whole capabilities of this media extractor. So first I'll do my QC, and then I'm going to re-sterilize this one more time before I use it to inoculate a bunch of grain spawn or sawdust spawn, and I'll do some grain spawn too, just to test that out in the outside. But this is morel liquid culture that is almost ready. Okay guys, so it's been about 56 hours since I inoculated my cordyceps liquid culture, and I've got my blood agar plate to test for bacteria, and then I've got my HE hectoin agar plate for Salmonella and E. coli. So this is what I'm going to QC my cordyceps liquid culture. No sense in inoculating a bunch of grain if this comes out with anything, so I always QC my liquid culture first, and then once we QC these, I'm gonna re-sterilize this media extractor, and then I'll be putting it on the morel liquid culture and running this on sawdust, grain spawn, and I'm just gonna put some diluted amounts of liquid culture in buckets and inoculate that directly outside. Alright, so the first step is taking out this pipette, which has been sterilized. You can see I like using these steam sterilizers. It turns it gray, so it's a good double check for your autoclave or pressure cooker. And I got this really nice glass pipette, so you don't need too much, but it's going to take a minute to prime the pump here. So the nice thing about this media extractor, you can see how easy that was. So you can see how easy that was, and you can leave it spinning. So a lot of times when I'm doing my liquid cultures out of jars, it doesn't mix as well, so you're not getting a complete sample. Whereas if you have the stir bar going and the hose at the bottom there, you're getting a more homogeneous sample for your QC. So I'll just go ahead and put a couple mils on the plate and kind of let that liquid go all around, and then these will be incubating for about 3 to 5 days in the incubator at 72 degrees Fahrenheit, and that way I'll know if there's any bacteria that's growing in here. But from the looks of it, it's probably going to be negative. You can see how clear that liquid is. If there was any bacteria, it would turn like a milky color. Or yeast. Yeast often does that too. So I'm going to go ahead and take this off here. And I'll just replace with a sterile cap. And I'll let that keep on incubating. So then I'm going to sterilize this guy one more time, and then we're going to inoculate a bunch of spawn and dilute out some of this mycelium using the media extractor. Alright, what's up guys? So it's 3 days after I took the sampling of these cordyceps, and surprisingly I found some bacteria. So that's why it's important to QC your liquid cultures. You can see the graininess. Here's the Morchella that's growing. See how the top you can still see is kind of clear, and then if you come over to the cordyceps culture, it's a little clear, but you can see down low this is really granular. It doesn't look like healthy mycelium, and it kind of plumes around when you shake it up. So that's a good indication that there's some bacteria. But if you look at the blood agar plate, you can see some colonies right here. So there's, 6 colonies, maybe 600 CFUs, which probably didn't look like much when I was taking out the sample for quality control. But over the next few days, it kind of blossomed into this big bloom. And then if I look at the Salmonella and E. coli plate, that is clean. So I know that it's not, Salmonella and E. coli, which is really good. It could be some Staphylococcus from my hands or my skin that got in there. Staph will grow on this blood agar plate, or it could even be some beneficial bacteria that I don't know about that lives in the cordyceps. Either way, I'm going to go ahead and discard this liquid culture and start over. So what I usually do is just fill it up, some bleach, so it'll kill all of the bacteria that's in there, and then I'll dump it down the drain. But that's right here, showing the importance of doing the quality control. So I'm still going to move forward with my Morel liquid culture because that's going outside anyway, and it's going to be exposed to lots of bacteria and hopefully beneficial bacteria. So I'll go ahead and make some sawdust spawn and some grain spawn, and then I'll show you the media extractor. Alright guys, so it's been about a week since I inoculated that Morchella liquid culture. You can see it's starting to get very concentrated. I just sterilized about 30 jars of sawdust spawn, and then I've got a bunch of grain spawn that I'm going to be using in my production, but I'm also going to inoculate some of the Morchella on the grain spawn, and then I'm going to be expanding some into buckets probably in about 2 or 3 days when the weather gets a little nicer. It's pretty cold outside right now, and I don't want the mycelium to freeze right away. But I'm going to go over how to use this lure lock pipette in combination with a media extractor. I also produced a lot more liquid culture for the cordyceps. I'm going to be giving this another try since my previous inoculation was contaminated. I cleaned out this thoroughly and produced a lot more liquid cultures that I'm going to be doing today as well. But my main focus right now is to show you how to use this media extraction device. So I'll flip this camera around and go through how to inoculate a bunch of these sawdust spawn jars. Okay guys, so the first thing I'm gonna do is transfer the extractor from this sterilized liquid culture onto our Morchella liquid culture. So I've sterilized this extra cap here to cover this 2-liter bottle of liquid culture that I sterilized, and then I'm going to be switching over to this very thick bottle of Morchella liquid culture. And then I'm going to try to position it so that it will be easy to extract media and inoculate the sawdust spawn over here. Try to get this going again. You can see right here, this is where the media is going to be extracted from. So I like how it's set up down in the corner so you can get all the very last bit. Um, Alright, so I'm getting some little bit of mixing. So you can see all of that healthy mycelium right there. There's a little bit of air that you could push out, but that all came from there. And if you look at this setup, there's a 0.2 micro nanometer pipe filter right here, and then that filters the air as it's drawn in through the top, and then there's a backflow preventer here, so that this area is the priming area for the extraction. So then I'm just gonna go ahead and start inoculating these sawdust cultures. I did them on the drier side so I could inoculate quite a bit of mycelium. I'm gonna try to do 20 mils. Okay, so there you have it. It took me about 10 minutes to inoculate all of these jars of sawdust spawn using the liquid mycelium. So I really like the fact that you can use this in conjunction with the stir bar. It didn't seem to interfere at all, which is really good. All my poles were pretty homogeneous, so all of these jars should not colonize at the same rate. Some of the problems I've had in the past by using just a pipette and aspirating from inside the bottle is that you don't get that homogeneous draw every time. So that's really advantageous if you're going to be making a lot of liquid cultures like I do pretty often, especially if you're doing like a bunch of syringes of the same culture. A couple other ideas I have that I'm going to be working on shortly is the implication of a peristaltic pump. So you can automate